Hey, how you doing? And welcome to RPG Horror Stories. Our comment from today is on the DM abuses their power to find a new partner video. It's by ArtmanXP. Can you do That Guy Destroys Psionics 2? Well, I would love to do that first, but you gotta realize that is that's over 2 on the Henderson scale, so we gotta start somewhere on the Henderson scale for this sort of thing, so we're starting at Henderson. But, hey, maybe after we do That Guy Destroys Psionics 1, so 250, so it would be just right after the 200 sub mark. And if you don't know, we're currently having a goal where if we reach that 100 subscriber mark on the YouTube channel, I'm going to read the Henderson story, the old man Henderson tale in all of its beautiful glory. I'm going to try and put as much effort as I can into it, put all the editing effects onto it. I just want it to be a fucking masterpiece, because god damn it, how do you play Old Man Henderson and not be a fucking masterpiece? Oh, I almost forgot. Hey, if you want to be featured in these videos, or you have a favorite horror story you want me to read, go ahead and leave a link in the comments, or leave your own horror story in the comments, and I'll probably read it. Now, there we go. On with the video. Oops, all puzzles. This one isn't as nightmarish as some, but it was definitely one of my most frustrating D&D experiences. It happened a while back when my roommate and I were first getting into the hobby. Our prior DM pitched to us a one-shot with 2 DMs, myself and a new DM, running 2 simultaneous groups going through different parts of the same dungeon, each part affecting each other. High concept, but whatever, could be fun. We agreed. Came up with a couple of orc bros and went. Each group had 5 players. We'd played a decent amount with the prior DMs, so we went with the new DM's group to see what his style was like, with a few other people whose backgrounds are not super relevant to the story. So the groups go to their own tables, and the new DM starts things up. We get abducted by a strange spirit and wake up in some cells. It's a puzzle to get out. Okay, nice. Takes a little while to solve. Have to bleed into a goblet in a specific order or something. Next room, a riddle room. Okay, one of the players figures out the riddle, or has heard it before, so we get through that pretty quickly. The next room, he brings out some kind of physical props to represent the puzzle that we had to mess around with to solve the puzzle. One of those interlocking ring and hook setups, which we do eventually do, though it takes frustratingly long since none of us are great at these. Now, there's nothing wrong with physical prop-based puzzles. They do have a place in Dungeons & Dragons, although I think that they belong in the more simple realm. So it's gotta be things that your players already know outside of D&D, something where it's somewhat okay to metagame to solve. So if your players have somebody in the group that knows how to solve a Rubik's Cube, that's something that I did a lot, because we had, I used to DM for a couple of people who knew how to solve Rubik's Cube, and they would inevitably play high-end characters, so the joke made itself. So I would oftentimes just, for our simple puzzles, either use the button push countdown puzzle, or I've just put a Rubik's Cube on the table and say shit like, oh man, only when the stars align will the door open. But it's gotta be something, simple for that your players already know, because you want them to be able to actually role play being dumb. You don't want them to feel dumb, if that makes sense. Mind you, the DM has barely called for rolls so far. Players that have asked to roll perception or some kind of a knowledge check are allowed to do so. But the only thing anyone learns is that the only way to proceed is to interact with the puzzle. Our various spells and abilities do not seem to interact with any of the puzzles due to enchantments. And everything in every room is made of material so hard that neither me nor my roommate are able to budge or damage anything of consequence. We're playing barbarian and fighters, so the lack of chances to employ our strengths is frustrating. Rolling for hints or whatever results in basically just him restating the premise of the puzzle to us. Don't do this. Now, listen, it is fine to have a bunch of puzzles. You can somewhat get away with it, but as a new DM, I very strongly encourage using simple puzzles, like a gear turning a room, or like just a button push patience puzzle. Don't try and overdo it. You know, sometimes it can be literally as simple as one lock out of 3 leads to the right room, and you can only pick one lock. That can be brute force. So, moving on to the next room, it's the classic one guy always tells the truth, one guy always lies situation. Easy solve. The next few rooms are after that. There are more puzzles and more wordplay riddles. Believe it or not. Each of them is set up so that it's basically impossible to use any of your abilities or the baseline game mechanics to interact with them. They have to be solved purely out of character. Hours have passed. At this point, I'm getting pretty checked out. I have to admit that. There's a whole meta puzzle where you have to remember all the puzzles and find objects that are reminiscent of them and put them in the order that we encountered them, which takes embarrassingly long. And at the end of that one, there's another puzzle involving a table with plates and silverware that you have to set in some way or something like that. But the DM also narrates that we can see our other group fighting a big monster from here. We're jonesing for a chance to actually use our character's abilities and want to get into the action ASAP. They're just over a big gap that I guess solving the table puzzle would create a bridge across or something, but instead our mage just casts Fly and starts ferrying people over. We are directed to roll initiative and move to the other DM's table where his party is already in combat. A fight with a big giant, which is almost dead already from the other group fighting it. So at the end of the day, we make 1 or 2 attack rolls, and that's it. But wait! A twist ending. There are 2 spirits. We each met one at the beginning of our respective one-shots. One of which is an obvious good spirit that says it can get us out of there, and the other an obnoxiously evil spirit that says if we kill the other one, it will give us the power to conquer the world, or something like that. The DMs are clearly trying to set up for a big chaotic PvP thing. But all 10 of us, well, one guy wanted to be evil, but realized he'd just get cursed on 1v9, just go to the one that said he'd get us out of here, so it just kind of awkwardly ends there. Chatting with one of our friends in the other group afterward, they had gone through a completely normal dungeon with a mix of fights, puzzles, and skill challenges. We told her that she was lucky. Months later, the new DM would admit that he only knew how to play 4th edition at the time. So, they decided to set up his side of the dungeon to not use any of 5E's mechanics as a solution. He would later become a member of our party in a future campaign and do a great job once he actually knew the system. Too long, didn't read. 2 DMs run a high concept simultaneous one-shot. Our group's DM didn't know how to play 5th edition, so uses 0 game mechanics and just makes it a puzzle gauntlet. Ends with an attempt to turn it into a 10-person mixed table PvP combat, which doesn't happen, so the one-shot just ends. I'm not really gonna go into a big thing on this. The only thing I can say is don't overdo it on puzzles. Puzzles can be a very good way to throttle the speed at which you go through a dungeon. But you should never rely on puzzles, especially puzzles that require metagaming. You should only have a couple of them per dungeon, maybe like an extra one in like a side room or something that would give you like fucking amazing, like awesome loot and shit. But I personally wouldn't lean so heavily into puzzles, though I can see why the DM decided to do this, because the DM, the new one, only knew how to play 4th edition, which probably some kind of misunderstanding there, so they probably thought it was 4th edition, learned it was 5th edition, and kind of winged it afterwards. I'm not sure, but ultimately, yeah, it is kind of awkward, but it ended up well. I mean, it's sort of a rocky start for the group, but it ends up being that this person joins as a player, learns the game mechanics, and comes back as a DM, and actually does a great job. So I think that even though this is a horror story, it does actually have a happy ending, which is rare and refreshing compared to the dark and gross horror stories that I've been reading as of late. That said, I do want to ask you to comment down there as to what your favorite puzzles are to use in Dungeons & Dragons. As I said, my favorite is to just grab a puzzle that I know my group knows how to solve and put it on the table and just describe it in a more mystical manner. You know, something that's obviously they're going to know how to fix, something they know how to solve already, so they can actually, you know, roleplay being stupid or roleplay being fucking like Giga Brain. So, I want to see what you guys have in mind. Nightmare player goes to the group before the ending. I had this player who right off the bat was a no-show for the second session, and then late the next 2 sessions in a row. He made up some excuses, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He claims he spent $100 on a character portrait for the game, so I would have felt bad kicking him. During our games, he repeatedly metagamed. He would go and Google creature stats and tell them out loud to the party. Despite this, after every session, he would tell me he had a blast and couldn't wait for the next one. During our last session, he had a really bad plan go sideways, mostly due to his poor planning and not thinking things through, which resulted in one of the party members getting captured. I guess he was salty things didn't go his way because he ghosted at the end of the session. He bailed on the group the final session before the end of the chapter. The douchebag leaves Discord and Roll20, blocks me on Reddit without a word or any kind of explanation, no warning, no nothing. This is the same guy who told me he wanted to commit to a 3-year-long campaign. The group will now be 1 man down for the final fight. Talk about being a man-child. Who the fuck does that? He got 25 plus hours of free entertainment and ghosted for no reason. Do people not have manners anymore? Now I'm gonna tell you guys, I actually had to retake this because I forgot my microphone was muted the first time, so I ended up having to retake this, but I unmuted it for the actual interpretation I had of this when I first read it, so things are gonna be a little bit choppy, but understand that I had read this about 10-15 minutes after it was posted, and I still have the same opinion of the post that I did when I read the post, which is that I'm pretty sure OP here is bad, the bad person here, and I think this could be a repost, possibly still worth reading. Okay, listen, OP, listen to me. I think that you are leaving out a lot of this story because listen, it sounds like this person has a lot of fun metagaming. It sounds like they were actually having fun in your game. I don't have the full story, but here's the thing. When you are playing Dungeons & Dragons, it's just as much about the DM having fun as the players having fun. If he likes to metagame and everyone in the party is enjoying it, if they haven't said anything, then he's in the right. But you're also in the right if you don't like that he's metagaming. But you can't really well and truly stop them because they can all just buy the monster manual. And it's as easily excused as like one of them having a bestiary written into their stat block. They can literally just know everything about a monster right there on the fly. It's not that hard. I mean, like, that's something that's barely even homebrew. It's basically just a custom notebook that's already been written in. It's honestly a really cool backstory. So, I mean, I don't know what to really well and truly say, but I'm actually gonna, for once in my life, go with the metagaming player. Because metagaming can be useful, and it sounds a little bit like you are conveniently leaving details out. I know that this is a brand new post. It's literally like within the last 20 minutes, but this kind of reeks of you having like punished him for metagaming, which, I mean, sure, there's a lot of people who do that, but I think that something happened here more than just the guy being a man-child. We play D&D. We're all adult children. That's not even part of the question, not even part of the equation. So there's more to this, and you're leaving out a lot of details here. You need to post this again with more detail, or like edit it and add in more details. I need to fucking know. And honestly, if I know who this person is, I'll probably like DM them on Reddit and ask them, hey, I want to get the other side of the story, because it sounds like this DM was actually being a dick and tried to make you look bad on RPG Horror Stories. Alright, that's all I have for today. Much love and stay sexy. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you've got some big dick energy, baby. And make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye!